I'm not someone who's going to tell you to get rid of everything because I'm not a minimalist, but I am living more intentionally with what I do have. Today, I want to take you around my house and show you 5 things that I will never declutter. Although, never say never, probably never declutter. I know that might sound funny because I'm in the middle of decluttering my life. I'm talking about simplifying and letting go, but I think this is an important part of the conversation as well because it's not always just about what leaves. It's not stripping your house down until there's no personality left. For me, it's not the idea of I can pack up my house in 5 hours and move somewhere else. For me, intentional living and decluttering and simplifying my home just means I'm asking better questions about what I have. Namely, does this support the life I want to live? Is this clutter or is this evidence of this life that I love? So today we are going to talk about 5 areas of my home that I will probably never declutter, even as I continue to simplify my home, because some things are still worth the space. So the first thing I will probably never fully declutter is my books. Recently, actually, for the first time in a long time, I donated, I think, 12 or 13 books to the little free library across the street. I passed a few on to my sister in law, and I counted them in my 1,000 item declutter. I'm sure there will be some more books that leave my house over time, but I will probably never be, no, I know for a fact I will never be the person who only owns a book she's currently reading. At this moment, I'm reading multiple of these. I have 2 books on my nightstand, one on my desk, more over there. It's not me if I'm not surrounded by books. I love books. I love being around books. Just yesterday, while my husband and I were out celebrating our 10th anniversary, he said, "Where do you want to go next?" After we went to the coffee shop, I looked across the street and said, "Barnes and Noble?" Because to me, Barnes and Noble smells like home. I love the smell of books. I love hanging out in libraries, and I always have. I have an English degree. It's a part of who I am. And there's this other part of me that has always wanted the Beauty and the Beast library. And I always thought if I keep all of my books, if I don't even give away the ones that I hate, the ones that I didn't finish reading because I didn't like them, my children's books, then I could fill a room like Beauty and the Beast. And yes, now I have had to get honest with myself. I can be surrounded by stories. I can have bookshelves in every corner of every room. I can have them hanging on my wall. And maybe that has to be my current version of that dream library where I am surrounded by stories. I may never get the giant library because my husband doesn't like huge homes. But I also don't see myself wanting to clean a house that's 50 times the size just to have a Beauty and the Beast room. So our actual life may never actually look like that fantasy. But that doesn't mean that books stop mattering to me. That doesn't mean that I don't love to be surrounded by them. I keep books because they hold memories for me. I keep books because I like to physically see them. They make my home feel more warm and alive and just full of stories that have filled my brain. I keep books that I haven't even gotten to. Both of these shelves are unread books because I'm excited to get to them. Honestly, I do have a Kindle. I read on my Kindle. I understand there would be less book clutter if I only kept books on my Kindle, but it always genuinely pains me a little bit when I finish a book and I don't get to actually close the cover of a book and put it back on a shelf. So yes, I can declutter books if I need to, but I will never declutter being a book person. And to me, that's the difference. That's the intentional identity behind the things I choose to keep. I have books up in the attic. That is a future project to go through those and decide if each one of those do in fact need to stay in my life. I think I'll be able to let go of a book that no longer means anything to me and has been just literally carted around from apartment to house to house. But I'm not trying to declutter my home into a version of me that doesn't love being surrounded by books. The second thing I probably will never declutter is my coffee rituals. It's not just a thing, it's multiple things. They all live here in my kitchen. You may be able to see Life is too short for bad coffee. And I truly believe that. So we have multiple ways to make coffee, and they sit out here on my counter. I have mugs that I love and I use every day. I have decluttered mugs before. I will declutter mugs again. People in my life know that I love coffee, and so they buy me new mugs. Sometimes the mugs stay and sometimes they go. But I will never be the girl with one mug. Why? Well, you see, this is the mug corner where for the mugs that don't fit over on the mug rack my husband made me. And every morning I come in here to get my coffee and I choose a mug based on my mood. Maybe that sounds silly to you, but there are mugs for mornings where I want a big old cup. There are mugs that my son absolutely loves. And sometimes he says, Mommy, can you use the red mug because it's my favorite color? And I say, Of course I can. There are mugs that I have gotten from people who are no longer with us and will forever hold cozy, comfy memories. This mug I use very specifically for tea or for that afternoon rainy day coffee. There are mugs I was gifted that I have named. This is peanut butter. There are mugs that I bought when I was in London, and it's the perfect size for cortado. Some of my mugs are cheerful, some of them are seasonal, some hold memories for me. And maybe to someone else that's silly and that's clutter, and you can just have one favorite mug that you use every morning. But that's not how my brain works. To me, it's delight. It's distinction between this is my mug of coffee and this is who I am and the type of day I'm going to have today. Because some variety can be clutter, but some variety can be joy. And in my coffee mugs and my coffee rituals, I choose joy. Coffee is not just caffeine to me. It is a ritual. It's baked into my Scandinavian background. I grew up getting off the bus, and at 4 o'clock, my mom had coffee parties for us kids on the front porch while we talked about our day. It's very common in Norway to have 4 o'clock coffee. I still do it, and it's become a part of my life and who I am. But if you look up here, this is my coffee makers. Aside from the Simply Good coffee brewer, aside from my espresso machine that I talked about in another video that I absolutely love and got for my birthday last year, I also have a French press. I have a Chemex pour over. I have, what is it called? I have an Italian percolator as well as an AeroPress. I have all of these ways to make coffee, and I don't want to get rid of any of them. I have different coffee methods because I like coffee that much. There was a time in my old apartment when my husband and I were first married that our drip coffee pot broke, and we didn't replace it right away. We were newly married in an apartment saving money. So I used my French press every single day for almost 2 years. That's when I started to notice that coffee tastes different based on how you make it. And also that the act of making coffee can be a good reminder to slow down and savor what you're doing, the craft of making a good cup of coffee. And I do that with all of these different brewers. Maybe for one person, it would be fine to just have the espresso machine. But for me, it's not. I am keeping the act of choosing my mug in the morning because simplifying, living more minimally, and being more intentional with how we live is not about removing these tiny joys. They make my day feel good. So I make the room for them in my house. The third thing that I will probably never fully declutter is arts and crafts supplies. I want to say this carefully because I know that craft supplies can become clutter very quickly. I know it can absolutely become chaos. Dried up marker, paint that doesn't work, sticker sheets that have no stickers left, random bits of paper and ribbons and scraps that you're never going to use. Yes, those can go. I don't keep every last scrap, but as a category, I am not narrowing it down. I am not trying to become a home that only has stuff for the current project they are working on. In this house, we are creative people. There are artists going back through both sides of this family. And I want my kids to grow up in a house where they can randomly come over here, grab something, and start crafting. I want to be able to say, yes, we have paint for that. Yes, we have pipe cleaners. Yes, we have pom poms. Yes, we even have glitter. Yes, let's go make that weird little thing you just imagined, like Forky. I would love to. But this one also has another layer for me because when our house flooded, we lost everything in the basement. I had two massive totes of my arts and crafts supplies, everything I had been storing up and using since I was probably in high school. Things that I saved and held on to for doing with my children one day. That was not a chosen declutter for me. That was not me deciding to get rid of some of that. It was just gone in the blink of an eye. And there have been moments since then, especially since we've started homeschooling, where I've thought, oh, I used to have something for that. And I'm still sad about it. So I think I know what it feels like to have all of those creative possibilities taken away. And I don't want to declutter our ability to just come in here and start doing something fun on a Tuesday afternoon. Again, this doesn't mean I keep every coloring book, every craft item, every dried out pen, but it means I keep the category in maybe a surplus of what other minimalists would do. But I keep it organized enough so we actually know where things are and can grab for it when we need it. It's contained in this corner of the house, this part of the dining room where we do most of our homeschool and crafting on this table. It doesn't take over the house, but it also allows us a space to be creative when the mood strikes. The fourth thing I will not be decluttering is seasonal blankets and pillows. I know a lot of decluttering advice and minimalist content talk about having just the one blanket on the couch that you use, having the one set of pillows that sit there year round, and maybe even removing most of the pillows. And technically, sure, I can survive with one blanket, but that's not what we're talking about. If I'm talking about an intentional life, I'm not choosing the bare minimum to get by. I don't want my house to feel the same every season because it's one of my favorite parts of childhood that I remember is my mom busting out seasonal things. I like when the seasons change in my home too. So we have Christmas tree blankets, ghost pillows, a quilt for Christmas that my mom made. We have all the red blankets that exist in our house. They live here until Christmas. I love bringing these out. The reds, the greens, the reindeer, the cozy cabin feeling that changes my living room. I love when the house starts to feel like Christmas because every corner is chock full of decor and blankets and seasonal things. These are things that I keep and bring out, and they bring back floods of feelings and memories. I have fall things. It's not just Christmas. And my kids, they love these little things. I may not have as much decor as my mom. I don't switch the season for every Valentine's and Easter, but for the big holidays, the seasonal shifts outside, as it gets colder, we get cozier. And this brings me joy. Do I want red blankets out all year? No, it is my favorite color. It is my son's favorite color, but I don't want them on my couch all year. But in December, yes, give me that bright red blanket, please. So no, I'm not going to declutter down to one blanket, probably not even two or three or four. I'm not only going to have a neutral blanket that goes well with each season because that's not what brings me joy. Seasonal blankets are not just about warmth and having something cozy on the couch. They mark the passage of time for me. They create an atmosphere for my family. Maybe that sounds silly, but I love it. Now, do they need to be contained? Yes. They live here in this chest and they all fit. If the blankets no longer fit where they are supposed to live, then we talk about decluttering. If a new one comes in and I cannot contain it, then we get rid of an old one. If it's scratchy or I literally don't bring it out and leave it in the chest as I change out my blankets, then we can let go of it. But the idea of having seasonal blankets and decor pillows, throw pillows, I'm going to keep. This earns its space in my intentional life. The fifth thing I will probably never declutter, much to my husband's chagrin, is the plants. Listen, I am not claiming to be the world's most perfect plant mom. My fiddle leaf was destroyed when my toddler was 2, who took all of his leaves off. But guess what? He's starting to grow new sprouts, and I feel so happy about it. Sometimes I do forget to water them. They do take up a lot of space. This is an obese aloe who started just growing 2 babies of his own. I have to clean around them. I have to dust. Sometimes they make corners feel a little more cluttered. Sometimes one of them looks very dramatic and sad because potentially I neglect it for a little bit too long. But I love having plants in my home. I have a ton in the dining room. I have a ton here. I have some in the living room, and they make each room feel alive. I love seeing new leaves sprouting. I love watching something grow. I love knowing that I had a small part in keeping something alive and helping it thrive. There's something really grounding about that for me. And every time I see them, I'm overjoyed that I helped this thing grow. I think it's another place where intentional living matters because technically, yes, these plants are much more to manage on top of being a mom and a homeschooler and a business owner of 2 different companies. But not everything that requires care has to be clutter either. I've talked before about all those mental decisions that your clutter can create for you. But this type of care, these decisions to remember to take care of them, are a part of the life that I wanted. Plants are something that I choose to take care of. I can rehome a plant if I'm truly not tending to it well, or it's just too big for the space we have. I can stop buying more if we're at full capacity for plants. But I'm not removing plants from my life because they require tending, because they take up space. They bring life into all the corners of my home, and I want that. So, anyways, those are 5 things that I will probably never fully declutter from my home: books, mugs and coffee rituals, arts and craft supplies, my seasonal blankets, and my plants. And the point is not that you need to keep these things. The point is that someone else might look at my books and say, whoa, that's overwhelming, way too many things to dust. Someone else might look at my mugs and think, that's way too many to keep. Someone else might look at all the different craft supplies I have and think, wow, that would stress me out. And that is the whole point. That is okay. This is my house. Intentional living is not about copying someone else. It's about finding what works with your exact life. It's about knowing yourself and your home and your family and choosing what stays. Decluttering has helped me let go of so much. It helped me see what I was keeping out of guilt, what I was keeping for a fantasy me, what I'm keeping just because I spent money on it, even what I was keeping because I just didn't want to make the decision right then. But decluttering has also shown me what I love. And I don't want to declutter these things. I want less of what drains me, but I want more room for what feels like mine. So maybe the question shouldn't be, what would a minimalist keep? Maybe the question is, what is worth the space in the life I'm actually building? For me, these things are worth the space. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm Kay, if I didn't say that in the beginning, and I talk about intentional living on this channel. Feel free to hit like or subscribe to follow along for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.